Can I ask you a question then about internal resources?
Sure.
I think about my community bank, the several thousand community banks that exist across the nation, and I wonder the level of resources that we have at our disposal to make sure that we can, once we've conducted our self-assessments, so through the CAT or through the RSAT or through the CIS controls, and we understand where we fit within those, we need to execute in areas that maybe we are up to speed or that we need to implement. And as a community bank with limited resources, we have to decide how we allocate those. And maybe we don't have the ability to have a full IT organization within our four walls, or even it's difficult to have one person who really has the expertise across a broad spectrum. So oftentimes we outsource. So we outsource, we have an internal resource as well. And I'm wondering, just given the sensitivity around this topic and also the fact that it is a very specialized field, how a board, how management who is not a specialist in this area is able to get their arms around this and make sure that what's been put in place is operating as it should.
It's a challenge, there's no question, particularly for smaller community banks, because it's complex to begin with and it's growing increasingly complex. And the threats are occurring at an accelerating pace as well. One of the things that I believe for community banks is you can't do this alone. You don't have the size to hire a full-time IT specialist in some cases. You have to get to a certain scalable size to have somebody that can live and breathe this all the time. And so you have to work with the consultants. You have to work with individuals and organizations that can supplement this. One of the things that we're seeing increasingly through examinations is the virtual ISO or the virtual information security officer. But even that can have problems. You don't necessarily have an ISO that is focused on your needs. They may be doing too much of a cookie cutter approach. They may not be educating you well enough, and you may be trying to defer everything to them and just presume they're taking care of it. So while you can defer some of the tasks to them, that doesn't mean you defer the responsibility. You still have to have your hands around it and understand these broader concepts.
So if I think about how we do that at our bank or at other banks, would you recommend that those are regular meetings that we hold with any outsourced function, maybe supplemented with an IT audit, or is there something else I should be thinking about just to make sure that we have an appropriate handle on this?
I would say yes, have the regular conversations. It's a time constraint though. I mean, your time is limited. You're pulled 100 different directions as the CEO. You're wearing many different caps. Your board often has many different focuses from their background, their specialties as well. So it's not something they can live with all the time, in and out. So I mean, yes, I deal with IT and security issues full time, but that's not what you have to deal with. Your career was not founded on IT. Your career was founded on financial matters and lending practices, and IT now has become a core strength that you have to develop, but it's not a natural thing that you developed. Not an inherent, I guess I should say, it's not an inherent skill set for many CEOs. So yes, you've got to have those meetings, you've got to try and make that balance. I would encourage your board meetings to always have some reference to IT. It's great to have a consultant come in and spend some time with them. Again, that's a time constraint because those board meeting days are very limited and they're usually action-packed with things to cover. But yes, continue those conversations and continue that discussion with the board about how are we going to do this.
That's good to hear. Thank you.